Hello, Joe Chiccarelli here. Welcome to my studio at East West. Come on in. So we're here at East West Studios in the building, and this is Studio 6, my personal studio. And I've been here a number of years now and love this place. The studios themselves are iconic and really classic rooms. And if you know anything about this, these rooms were built by Bill Putnam, who started UA Audio and designed the 1176 and many other things that have become, you know, the staple of recording gear for, I don't know, 50 years, who knows, more than that. He was quite the inventor, quite the acoustician, just amazing ears, and from what I'm told, a really wonderful person. And Studio One, which I'm sure you've visited, was built really for Frank Sinatra, because he was Frank Sinatra's engineer and really built that room with big band recording in mind. He really wanted to capture the sound of horns and be able to have acoustic instruments all in the same room and have the bleed, the spill, sound really natural. And recording in Studio One, it's incredible how even everything is, and there aren't buildups of certain frequencies in areas, and the spill is very uniform, very natural sounding. So you can really hear, like, big band recordings in that room are just super smooth sounding. So this building was really, you know, his dream to record organic instruments and work with Sinatra. And they, from what I'm told, they did That's Life, and it was a very good year, and My Way, and a number of the Sinatra classics were all done in Studio One. But what I just found out recently, which is pretty incredible, is that they were such good friends, Bill Putnam Sr. and Frank Sinatra, that when Sinatra left his deal at Capitol Records and went to Warner Brothers to start his new label, Reprise Records, which, you know, many great artists have been signed to over the years, was funded by Warner Brothers. Sinatra needed office space, and Bill Putnam was kind enough to say, well, if you need office space, I have spaces upstairs at East West. Why don't you use one of these spaces as your office? So what I found out recently is that my room was the start of Reprise Records. So this is where Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and whom knows who else would probably hang out, because this was the beginning of his record label. So it's pretty incredible vibe to be in that space and know the history of this building and the people that built it and what classic recordings were done here. And everybody that comes in and works in Studio One or Two or Three or anything knows, you know, the Beach Boys, the Mamas and the Papas, the Fifth Dimension, and Whitney Houston, and Weezer, and Audio Slave, and Chili Peppers, and Tom Petty, and it just goes on and on and on. Yeah, so this is my main setup here. I use, for mixing, I'm pretty much in the box in terms of plugins and balances and everything. I use this C24 only really for faders. Monitoring is the Dangerous. This is one of my favorite things. All my conversion, because I am mixing with a summing box and a hybrid kind of setup, so everything is going through the Burl mothership converters. Like, actually all the rooms at East West have Burl converters, and they are the most fat analog sounding converters I've ever heard. They're just really punchy and they have character, and they've really, I find that my mixing takes less time because there's more sound there coming out of the converters. I'm not fighting to get tone and size out of the converter. So everything is right here in terms of the conversion. Then I go, through an analog Burl summing network, and then for mixing, I choose my stereo bus gear depending on the project, whatever colors I like. Rock projects get a little different treatment than pop projects or acoustic projects. So, I'll choose between a Shadow Hills compressor or an SSL compressor or a smart compressor, just depending on what the music likes the best. I love my Chandler curve bender. I use that almost all the time. More for rock projects than pop projects, but love that. Occasionally the API works great, or Clariphonic. I'm doing a lot of overdubs up here, so I'll be doing vocal overdubs or bass overdubs or guitar overdubs. Lots of guitar overdubs up here. It's really comfortable. There's a lot of room for a player to spread out and put tons of pedals and have one-on-one communication. So that's really good. And so all my guitars go through my current favorite preamp EQ for guitar are these Helios modules. I'm in love with these things. Eddie Kramer insisted I listen to them a couple of years ago, and he was right. For guitar, they're clear and smooth, yet aggressive. I love APIs because they're aggressive. Sometimes they get a little much, and these are just like the perfect combination of clarity and punch. So I tend to use the Helios and API combination for guitars. And I sum my mics through this Heritage Audio summing network here. And so I'll typically, as you see, put 2 mics on a guitar, and they'll get summed through this, and probably then go through an 1176, or sometimes the Mercury compressor for something a little thicker, smoother. For a little brighter, tighter thing, the 1178. I have a Sound Techniques preamp here, which is really, really interesting color. Very smooth, bright, but never harsh. It's really great for vocals. Acoustic guitars is my favorite preamp ever. The EQ is just super smooth on the top end. So I tend to put a lot of my vocals through the Sound Techniques, and I love Pultecs, I love tube EQs, I love really broad, fat sounding EQs. So I'll use the Mercury EQ for my vocals or acoustic guitars. That's just one of my favorite boxes. Really, really great. What else do I have here that I can show you? I have a SSL Fusion, which sometimes if I want to get a little bit of grit and drive on the stereo bus, a little saturation, I'll use that. That really works great. My other favorite for keyboards is the Overstayer channel strip. I love this box. It has a combination of really hard high pass, low pass filters, 3-band EQ, compressor, and overdrive saturation circuit. So I find for keyboards, it's just the perfect thing because it allows me to really shape them to fit into the record, especially if I'm trying to fit them in with guitars. I can get them so they sound a little more organic and they really don't get buzzy and noisy. That's an amazing, amazing box. It's my kind of go-to box for any keyboard, whether it's acoustic piano, Wurlitzer, or synthesizers. I have, you know, a bunch of synthesizers here. There's Juno, there's a Nord, there's a Moog, there's a number of synthesizers all around the place, and often those synthesizers get put through 100 stomp boxes and tortured, and you know, of course it depends on what you're doing, but it's, you know, kind of typical to make sure that they get ample color, you know. 10 years ago now, maybe more, I can't even remember, but ATC 45s are my go-to speaker. I was on tannoys for years. I loved them, I trusted them. Not a lot of artists enjoyed listening on them, but I did, and I really knew how to get the right frequency spectrum on them. But after a while, I found that a lot of my records sounded the same in terms of frequency balances. Not creatively, but just the spectrum was always the same. So I started to get tired of it, and I really wanted to change, and I listened to every possible loudspeaker out there. I mean, really, I must have tried a dozen different monitors that friends used or people recommended, and I initially heard the ATC 25s and liked them, but there wasn't enough low end for me. And at the time, Brad from ATC said, you know, we're building 45s that are going to have more low end, and when I get them, I want you to hear them. And he brought them to me. I was in the middle of an Alanis Morissette record, and he brought them to me. I think I just started mixing. He brought them to me at the studio, and I just called him up and I said, you're not getting them back. What do I owe you? These sound amazing. I love these. And I have serial numbers 001 and 002. So these are the first pair that he had, and yeah, they're just fantastic. And then, as a kind of second source, I have these Acoustic Energy British speakers that Nigel Godrich and a lot of other people use. For me, they're a good alternative to NS10. They're not as mid-range heavy as an NS10, but they do a very, very similar thing, and they're very easy on the ears, and they give me a different perspective for the mid-range. So I'll go back and forth between those. And then, as I said, because I'm a long-time tannoy user and got used to that coaxial driver sound, I bought a pair of Chris Polonis's speakers, which are based on tannoy drivers, but his own amp design. They're a bi-amp speaker, and that'll be my sort of small speaker reference. I also have some Oratones and some AR powered partners that they were made in the 80s, I think, and they're really interesting references. There's something about balances. You can really tell balances on those speakers. I really love those speakers. So, you know, I have many different sources of speakers to check things on here. I'm going to show you my vocal booth here. This serves as my kind of lounge and vocal booth. And great thing is that all the rooms have sunshine. I see out to beautiful downtown Hollywood. One of my favorite vocal mics up, C37. So I have a lot of different guitars here and in other locations in the building, but there's some acoustics up here. There's Guild, there's Fenders, there's Epiphones, Yamahas, high strings, rubber bridge guitars, little bit everything, mandolin here, a lot of different things. Chet Baker photograph at home for years, and I've always loved it. It's just a classic photo, and I brought it here because I realized that sadly, this building, I don't know if you can see it, that's under construction here, this new apartment building on the corner of Gordon Street and Sunset. They tore down a building there maybe about a year or two ago to build this new apartment complex. But sadly, the building that they tore down was the home of Sage and Sound Studios, which is where all the Chet Baker records were made. Let's Get Lost and Almost Blue and My Funny Valentine and all those classic jazz records, not only Chet Baker, were all done like on that corner. And you know, sadly, Los Angeles doesn't preserve a lot of buildings, but you know, that in the 1950s and 1960s would have been just bustling with top-class jazz musicians, studio musicians. Everybody would have been working there. And then I'll show you this is my sort of amp closet, if you will. Typically I always do guitars here in the room, but it's good to have the amps as isolated as possible so they don't bleed into the rest of the building. So I've got kind of everything in here. SVT, a couple of different SVT heads. There's basses here, 12-string sitars, baritones, tons of pedals, hundreds of guitar pedals. Every drawer is filled with guitar pedals, more pedals. I love a lot of the Death by Audio pedals. The Eventide pedals are great. The Source Audio pedals are great. I've got, you know, all the standard Boss things, and love the JHS Archer. That gets used a lot. It's kind of a clone. That's really popular. Everybody seems to love that. You know, it just depends on the music. Typically, you know, most of the projects I'm doing, we're doing overdubs up here. We'll track down in the main rooms at East West in Studio 1 or 2, depending on the project. Then we'll come up here, do vocals, guitars, acoustic guitars, keyboards. You know, there's Fenders, Voxes, everything I need to kind of finish off a record. For the whatever I was doing last projects, typically a dynamic and a ribbon is what I'll use, that combination. Sometimes I'll put a mic further back, but you know, this is a very dead room, so it's just mainly for tight overdubs. I love the Royers. I use the Royers all the time. It's just like the perfect combination for guitars, having a ribbon and a 57. And most of my 57s are old Unidyne ones, which do sound a little smoother than the newer ones. Jose, so good to see you. I'm glad you came up. I'm glad you came to visit me here at East West Studios. And I hope you love my space as much as I do, and you feel comfortable here, and come back soon.